Hello everyone, good evening and welcome to Roma Theory. It's been 24 hours now since an earthquake happened in the city of Rome, which a lot of Roma fans weren't expecting, and which brought Jose Mourinho being sacked by Roma themselves, and then a few hours later appointing Daniele De Rossi. Look, we've got a game on Saturday, and tomorrow I'm going to share my first match preview of the De Rossi era against Verona, massive game. Today, I want to speak about De Rossi's tactics. I want to speak about how he will lay out a Roma team. I have analysed some games at Spal, which is the only thing that you can analyse as managerial career coming from De Rossi. We're going to look at the differences in formation from Jose to De Rossi. And then I do also want to talk about this very, very, very interesting article which I read this morning, kind of revealing the truth of what actually happened in these last hours, which led to Mourinho being sacked. I specifically chose this article because I know that out there, when a manager gets sacked, everybody starts inventing news over news, stories over stories, like it's a fairy tale world. But I deliberately chose this coming from Il Corriere dello Sport because Il Corriere dello Sport, the director of Il Corriere dello Sport, is Ivan Zazzaroni. And I already mentioned him in this Jose adventure with Roma. Zazzaroni and Mourinho are close friends. You know, Zazzaroni speaks to Mourinho. I'm not going to say every day, just like father and son do, but they do speak recently. So Il Corriere dello Sport is not in a position to, make a lot of things up. Obviously, things aren't going to be accurate because the truth is that nobody was and nobody will know the truth about this. But out of all the sources, this is the one that I trust the most. And we'll get into this. But look, I would want to start looking at the tactics. Saturday is coming. A new era is starting at Roma. I still need to digest this shock of Mourinho being sacked. But at the end of the day, the true story and the realistic side to this is that we move, and unfortunately we have to move, and we can't be stuck in this sand dune, because if we remain stuck in this sand dune, then we're not going to move, and emotionally we're never going to get back living. We went through Budapest as a whole. We went through Totti's retirement as a whole. I went through the farewell of a lot of what I considered idols growing up: Nainggolan, Salah, De Rossi. You know, Jose leaving is sad, but just like we've done many, many other times as Roma fans, we have to move on. I am going to, in fact, no, let's first introduce his philosophy, and then I will put on the screen a graphic showing what his ideal formation at Roma is. So, little background on De Rossi. De Rossi managed Spal in the Serie B, and it didn't go well. It did not go well, and it would be a lie to say that it went well. It was his first managerial experience. He's still at the very start of this new experience post-footballer. And De Rossi is coming from the Spalletti school of managing. Spalletti has always been known for, for offensive football, modern tactics, and De Rossi is coming from his school of philosophy. Everybody in these past hours have written articles on the way De Rossi will implement his tactics. De Rossi is a manager who has modern tactics, who has offensive football, who has high pressing, high intensity, and that is what we will see in the long term. That's not what we're gonna see on Saturday. That's not what we're gonna see in February. It will take time. It will take time for himself to implement his tactics and for these players to learn his tactics. Don't expect spectacular Spalletti style football for the next, realistically speaking, 3 months. It's going to take time. It's going to be a process. But he's got modern ways of thinking. With that being said, I have researched his games at Spal, and he's always played with a back three. So just like Mourinho, he's a back three coach. However, the difference in Mourinho's formation with a back three and De Rossi's formation with a back three is that Mourinho obviously played with a 3-5-2, and De Rossi tends to play with a 3-4-2-1, which is the formation, may I add, that Mourinho used when we won the Conference League. Then I don't know why we got back and we changed the formation and all of that. Maybe it's because Mkhitaryan, Veretout, Ibanez left, but yeah, even last season Jose changed this formation. I still need to understand why he did so, but maybe he saw a mode of transition in the 3-5-2. But yeah, De Rossi plays with a back three, but obviously the offensive formation does change. So if Jose's formation is a 3-5-2, De Rossi's ideal formation at Roma would be exactly this. It would be this. This is, according to Sky Sports, and looking at the way he played at Spal, De Rossi's ideal formation at Roma. Back three is the same, but going forward, things change. Immediately, what changes is the fullbacks and the position that the fullbacks are in. Zaleski and Karsdorp, or whoever the fullbacks will be, are going to have a way more offensive approach to these games. While Bovi and Cristante will kind of be required to be the Matiches of the situation like last season. And Pellegrini, for example, will be brought back to the position where he played with Jose under his first season. And realistically speaking, it was his best season under Jose, playing in this position. So, look, this is the formation. Analysing this, Rui Patricio obviously in goal, Llorente, Smalling and Mancini in defence. I do want to speak about Smalling for a second because it's interesting. Now, there are reports saying that Smalling is apparently on the verge of being back training with the group. If this isn't a coincidence, then I don't know what is. Clearly, and I mean clearly, Mourinho and Smalling fell out. Because at the start of the season, Mourinho kept on attacking Smalling in press conferences. And to a certain stage, he actually went live in a press conference and said that Smalling has ruined this season. And Smalling has ruined my season. And Smalling and Mourinho was probably the relationship which fell out the quickest in this entire environment. And apparently, I'm not sure about this, but Smalling has released an interview yesterday, and he said how De Rossi wants to ask him to be ready for Saturday's game, and that Smalling said, apparently in this interview, he said that he will try his best to be available for Saturday's game. Clearly, he was faking his injury. Clearly, it's something that makes you ask a lot of questions. Was Smalling injured? Maybe he was, but he made it look way worse. Again, do I think he'll start on Saturday? No, he won't. And, you know, the entire ownership won't allow Smalling to start on Saturday because it's another layer to the disrespect that Mourinho would receive. You know, I think wherever in the world Jose is right now, he will have a glance at Saturday's game. You know, especially if the fans prepare banners for Mourinho. Inevitably, Mourinho on Saturday, wherever he will be, he will turn the TV on and see maybe 5 minutes of the Roma game. What happens? And imagine his reaction if he sees Smalling on the pitch. You know, it would be adding layers to the disrespect that this ownership has given to Mourinho. So no, he won't start on Saturday. This is the ideal formation. This isn't this formation which I think will start on Saturday. This is the ideal formation that De Rossi will implement with his tactics and with his new formation. But yeah, Smalling is very interesting. I mean, if that is the case, it's unacceptable. You know, that is literally the definition of being a bitch, if that's true. But it also doesn't take a genius to see that the relationship between Smalling and Mourinho was on, was on the verge of collapsing, and something broke out between the two, without an absolute doubt. Moving forward, Cristante and Bove are going to be the Veritus or the Matiches of last season. Defensive midfielders. They will need to be that wall, that the bricks forming the wall. There will need to be that defensive midfielder approach, which will also kind of start supporting our fullbacks, which are going to be placed in a position where their offensive transitions are going to be way more favoured. And you can clearly see that in that formation. This is the definition of modern tactics. Nowadays, modern tactics, modern football means relying on your wingers. It means having good wingers. This doesn't mean that Karsdorp and Zalewski will suddenly put 80 crosses out of 80 precise on Lukaku's head. No, they still will have their limits. But it is also true to say that, for example, Mourinho started Zalewski in a position that never represented him, and it's the reason why he was absolutely terrible in that position. Zalewski in a more offensive position, I'm the first one to say that I want to see him because I think he could be great in a way more offensive position. So Zalewski more prone to the offense, and Karsdorp as well. Again, these can change. Spinazzola can start, but the same discussion. This is the ideal formation, not the formation which will start on Saturday. On Saturday, we won't have Mancini and Cristante because of suspensions. So this is the ideal formation. In terms of predicted 11, we'll speak about that tomorrow in the match preview. Then, up front, Dybala and Pellegrini behind Lukaku. It's very important not to put Dybala next to Lukaku. This is another thing that, I never agreed with Jose, putting Dybala next to Lukaku instead of Dybala behind Lukaku. There was a long period of time with this 3-5-2 formation where Dybala played next to him. Dybala isn't physical. Dybala can't play as a striker. Dybala needs to play next to somebody behind a striker. And with that being said, that is the position that Pellegrini needs to play in. Again, in Jose's first season, that was Pellegrini's position. And it isn't a surprise that Jose's first season was also Pellegrini's best season. Scored goals, scored free kicks, contributions, a lot of assists. We need to get that Pellegrini back. Will we get that Pellegrini back on Saturday? No. But it's that position he has to play in. It's that position he needs to play in. Because recently Mourinho was asking Pellegrini to be everywhere in that pitch. And he couldn't. Because of resistance. Because of, the way he played. And the attitude he had. Mourinho asked Pellegrini to play where he's been placed now in that graphic. But also where Cristante is in that graphic. And that is one of the reasons why... he wasn't feeling good and he was having terrible performances. It's not the only reason, but it's one of the reasons. So that is where Pellegrini needs to play. Looking on this formation, the players who I think could be revitalized are Zalewski and Pellegrini. There are players which can play better, but there are players which, no matter who and no matter what the formation is, are still considered dead players in my opinion. Spinazzola is one of them. Again, he might start as a more offensive fullback, provide a few assists and a few goals maybe. And yeah, but that doesn't change the fact that Spinazzola is a finished player and he should leave in the summer. So I would much rather see Zalewski start these games and get kind of used to playing in a more offensive position, because in the long term, he will be the one and not Spinazzola. So that, in my opinion, is De Rossi's ideal formation. And yeah, that's it. Speaking about De Rossi, he spoke today. He released his first interview, but I'm gonna analyze and tell you guys what he said at the end of this live stream to conclude the stream. I do want to bring this live stream though now to what is, I'm not going to say the truth, because again, nobody will ever know the truth about the Mourinho situation and the way Mourinho reacted to this. But out of all the sources that I read, I think this is the source which gives the the best interpretation, coming from a newspaper whose director is one of Jose's best friends. So this interpretation tells you that it was a shock, tells you that the relationship between the Fredkins and Mourinho recently, especially after that Budapest final, degenerated. And it also tells you that there's a group of players that kind of prepared a mutiny against him. And add these things together, it's the reason why he got sacked. Let me read this because it's not a short one. First, the dismissal of Jose Mourinho, then the official announcement of Daniele De Rossi as Roma's new coach. In the middle of this, a quarrel, not even so light, between the special one himself and the Fredkins. In fact, both Dan and Ryan would have called the Portuguese coach early yesterday morning at around 8 a.m. to speak to him. The background of the Corriere dello Sport therefore sheds light on Mourinho's last hours as Roma coach before the final decision was communicated to him by the club. A short-lived conversation that surprised the Portuguese coach, who then exploded completely against the Fredkins. The Fredkins apparently called him to his office, "Come to my office." Roma's long and intense morning began with a phone call from Dan Fredkin, who called up Jose Mourinho on Tuesday to invite him to his office. The Giallorossi ownership plane landed in the capital on Monday. Father Dan and his son Ryan, after a night of reflection, then had everything clear: to sack the special one and to give space to De Rossi, a friend of Ryan's. There would have been a very harsh confrontation, an argument, since the dismissal was not taken well at all by Mourinho. In an instant, big words flew between the parties before the final farewell, which certainly made a lot of noise. Very harsh words in English, in a rebound of responsibility that usually precedes separations. Mourinho had been waiting for a confrontation with the owners for some time. Perhaps, in his heart, he was hoping for a renewal that might have been sought several times. Also through various public declarations, which however the Fredkins have always tried to avoid. The idea was clear: start again with a new project. The Fredkins reapproached Mourinho for some shortcomings, and the special one responded by putting on the table the promises not kept by the ownership. The breakup was in fact inevitable. Yes, Budapest itself seems to have been the first stage that led to the split between Mourinho and the Fredkins. Mourinho's disorganized reaction against the referees would have been the result of the coach's total frustration at having been left alone by the club. He expected full support from Roma for the incorrect refereeing choices of the referee chosen for that Europa League final, and instead he was the only one who showed his face. From that moment on, there was a continuous provocation towards the Fredkins by Mourinho for the shortcomings on the unsatisfactory transfer market, and some more or less veiled declarations on TV, always regarding his current condition as a lonely man within Roma. Tiago Pinto's farewell then made his situation even more difficult, because the sporting director, in fact, was the one who blocked the Fredkins when they already wanted to kick him out in September. The newspaper reports that already after Genoa's 4-1 win over Roma in September, Tiago Pinto had stopped the Fredkins from deciding to sack Mourinho. The Portuguese sporting director did not see a valid replacement on the horizon who could take on such a heavy legacy. In fact, this makes it clear that the owners had already decided for some time not to consider the coach's contract renewal at all, reacting almost laughing in Trigoria when anybody heard and asked if Mourinho was going to renew his contract. In the middle, the situation has now become difficult with the players, from Smalling, who probably hides tensions with the coach behind his long injury, up to Pellegrini, Korsdorp, Renato Sanchez and Spinazzola. All players who have had disagreements with the Portuguese coach, who is no longer protected by much of the locker room. In fact, Mourinho has now just become a memory for the Giallorossi. Shit. I mean, that has to be the reaction. Shit. I read this, and whether you trust this or not, disrespectful. That's not how you treat him. That is not how you treat him. But you get so many things from this. The players prepared a mutiny. Pellegrini, Smalling, Renato Sanchez all had disagreements with Mourinho, which eventually led to a mutiny and eventually led to the dressing room being, broken in half, with players wanting him to stay, players wanting him to leave, in a situation which you couldn't do nothing about. We have a situation where the Fredkins never considered a renewal of contract. I remember every day we spoke about and asked ourselves the question, is he going to get the renewal of contract? Realistically, reading this, the Fredkins never considered it. And in fact, they laughed at people who actually asked them if he was going to renew his contract. And then you've got Thiago Pinto acting as a rock. The Fredkins wanted to sack him after Budapest, and Mourinho kept staying there. After Genoa, and Thiago Pinto was the reason he stayed there. This is a background, a behind the scenes that, it's never good, because the manager got disrespected. But it's also a situation where the players mutinied. The Fredkins never respected him again. And it's a situation which was inevitably only going to worsen, because players had enough of this. Players had enough. Jose wasn't expecting this. And the reaction says it. He had a fight with Dan yesterday morning. He wasn't expecting leaving Roma like this. And I don't think he had to leave Roma like this. He deserved a better farewell. But look, I'm dragging this on too further. Unfortunately, Jose is now the past. And now we have Daniele De Rossi. Now, what can I say? On Saturday, we have our first game. On Saturday, we have a first game with their new manager. And De Rossi today spoke. De Rossi today released his first interview and said a very important thing. Because he said, legacy with Roma and all of that. But he said a very, very, very important thing. And this important thing is, I need the fans to stay with me. And this is massive. This is massive. We don't have Mourinho anymore. We've got De Rossi. De Rossi might not be the biggest pick, but De Rossi needs respect and De Rossi needs support. Taking the Roma job after a manager who brought glory back to us is not easy. De Rossi needs support, and De Rossi needs what Jose had. De Rossi needs this, because De Rossi is inexperienced. De Rossi is a legend at this football club, but he decided to take this risk of accepting us, being aware that, this experience at Roma can kill his managerial career. But he decided to accept this because he loves this team and he's ready to die for us. And De Rossi deserves respect, and De Rossi deserves what Mourinho got. De Rossi deserves the fans being with him, supporting him, and not giving up on him. Because just like Mourinho wasn't Harry Potter, neither is De Rossi. The problems at this football club stay, and the problems at this football club are still present. De Rossi doesn't have a magic wand, just like Mourinho didn't have a magic wand. And, we defended Mourinho until yesterday. We have to defend De Rossi, and we need to give him our full support. That means going to the stadium, at home, watching games. This needs to continue. As I said, we could be here speaking about Mourinho, but unfortunately, the decision has been taken, and it's the past. It's the past. And we have to move on. We have to move on. Saturday, we've got a massive game. And again, what can we do? I trust De Rossi, and Right, I'm going to catch you tomorrow with a match preview. First match preview under De Rossi. So I'm going to catch you tomorrow. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe. I know, it's an earthquake. We're still shocked by the Mourinho news, but again, we didn't take this decision, and it has affected us. We're the victims of this. But unfortunately, the decision has been taken, and Mourinho is now the past. We need to move on, and we need to give De Rossi what best we can possibly give, because he's a legend and he deserves this. And he specifically asked for this today. I need the fans to stay with me. Daniele De Rossi, I'm not sure about everybody here, but you've got my back. I trust you, DDR. I trust you. And yeah. Anyways, talk to you soon. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and talk to you soon. Good night. Love you all, and take care. See you out.